Okay, so what we're going to see now is, I've just played John Bradshaw and Peter Mara from the 20th of September 2016 on the problem of cat predation. Now the following day there obviously was a big furore about it all, and the following day, the 21st of September 2016, the BBC trotted out somebody called Jeff Knott from the RSPB to comment on it. Now, you would think somebody from the RSPB is going to give an honest opinion on this. In fact, he does the complete opposite. If he was honest, the first thing he would have done is point out what a complete charlatan John Bradshaw is. The second thing he could easily have done is say, if you want to know the truth on cat predation, Google the Mammal Society survey of 1997, cat predation of our native wildlife, and you will see exactly what cats have done. Okay, he says neither of those things. He goes on to provide a breathtaking litany of deceit, and we're going to listen to that now, and I will comment on it and show how deceitful it is.
What the evidence shows is that in our gardens there really isn't a serious impact of cat predation on bird populations.
He starts as he means to go on. It's just all deceit. So he says what the evidence shows. He does not, as I say, I'll show you some evidence. He doesn't. That's the Mammal Society survey. This is what 986 cats killed, okay, across the piece. It's annihilation of the ecosystem. He's not interested in the evidence. If he was, he would point you in the direction of it. But the last thing he wants you to do is use your own brain and actually work out the truth for yourselves. That is exactly what he doesn't want. He's a propagandist. He's speaking on behalf of cats. He says what the evidence shows is that in our gardens, he's not speaking on my behalf. When he talks about our gardens, no, my friend, you're not getting away with that. He doesn't mention reptiles and amphibians. He sticks purely to birds. He doesn't mention ecosystems. This is how he goes on. So we'll listen to some more of it now.
Now we know cats do take a large number of birds.
So that's about the only thing that he says that could be described as the unvarnished truth. They certainly do take a large number of birds. As Peter Mara said, though, the extrapolated figure for all wildlife, not just birds, is 275 million. Okay, that's the upper figure. The lower figure is 100 million. Jeff Knott will cite 55 million birds. He sticks purely to birds because that way he can get the numbers down. Even at that level, it's a monumental amount, but that's why he sticks to birds.
But most of the small birds that we see in our garden have evolved to be able to withstand a really high level of predation.
So that is not true, not predation at the level that cats are doing it. So I've said before, if you compare like for like, UK population of sparrowhawks, roughly 32,000 pairs, so that's about 64,000 birds, 12 million cats. Okay, there is no comparison whatsoever. Sparrowhawks don't kill toads, slow worms, frogs, all the rest of it either, so there's no comparison in that respect. Cats are both nocturnal and diurnal hunters. They will hunt by day and by night. We all know this. They are killers across the board, and they can sit in a garden, our garden, he's got the neck to talk about. They can sit there all day and they can wait for anything. They're patient, they're very adept hunters. They can wipe things out. I mean, for him to say that, they have not evolved. In the Mammal Society survey in Bristol, the number of cats was roughly 226 per square kilometre. Okay, in Scotland the density of wild cats roughly 1 per 2 square kilometres. So the density of domestic cats in Bristol about 450 times the density of the wild cat. What he says is a straight lie. Birds can't withstand this, and even if they could, it's our private property that other people's pets are killing on. Okay? So always remember that. It's not to do with the overall population, which is what he keeps saying. It's our property. We don't want wildlife killed on our private property. Okay? He's a liar.
And what that means is that most of the birds that are taken by cats in our gardens would probably have died from something else, whether it's starvation, disease, or cold weather over winter.
Okay, so like Bradshaw, he uses the caveat probably. They both do. I've heard other RSPB spokespeople possibly. What does it mean? It's meaningless. Okay, now if these birds do die of starvation, disease, cold weather, whatever it is, that is nature, that's fine. You know, we don't object to that. What we object to is that they're being killed by other people's pets. And as I say, we are going on to look at instances of nest predation by cats. So none of those factors are in play. The nests are wiped out by the cat. The birds never even get out of the nest. Okay, and if he says that doesn't happen, and they do say that all the time, they are liars.
And what the evidence shows is that while it's certainly very distressing to see, the predation by cats is not the thing driving the declines of the birds in our countryside.
Okay, so again, there's two things there. While it's very distressing to see, indeed it is. It is very distressing for me to see cats hunting on what is supposed to be my own private, sacrosanct property, killing things. Okay, it is very, very distressing. It really is. And these same people blather on about mental health. They don't care. They couldn't care less. They want the money flowing into their coffers. That's what they want. The second thing is, he says it is not the thing driving the decline of birds. Okay, as with most ecology, it's death by 1,000 cuts. Okay, cats are not the only thing. It's loss of habitat, of course it is. It's road traffic, it's pesticides, it's this, it's that, it's the other. It's all of these things. Any honest ecologist, environmentalist, conservationist would tell you that. By the same token, to say that cat predation has nothing to do with it, it's complete rubbish. And I mean, you know, when you're up against these propagandists, they never state the obvious. So let's state the obvious. They say it's all about habitat loss. Okay, if you've got a declining habitat and you've then got an invasive species that exists in numbers that dwarf any native predator, any legitimate predator, and those predators are free to hunt across that declining habitat day and night, who could honestly and plausibly say that's not a problem? Okay, no honest person would say it's not a problem. He is not an honest person. You are probably starting to see that now. He is a deceiver.
Because the figure that Dr. Peter Mara mentioned in the US, he believes that cats probably kill on an annual basis up to 1.4 billion birds there. Does that sound right to you?
I mean, I don't know about the American figures, but I mean, estimates in the UK have suggested about 55 million birds per year are killed by cats, which certainly is a large number.
So again, he doesn't know about the American figures. Why not? He should do. If he's working for the RSPB, he ought to know. And I can tell you this, if he saw a gain for himself, so the RSPB is affiliated to BirdLife International. Of course it is. You know, these are not parochial global parochial local organisations or even national organisations, because conservation is not a local or a national issue. It is those things, but it's also supranational. So as I say, if he saw a gain to himself in mentioning the fact that the RSPB is affiliated to BirdLife International, and he could cite some other figure in some other country, he would do it like a shot. The second thing, as I say, he has cited 55 million birds. That rules out mammals, reptiles and amphibians. Okay, so again, it's all deceit. It's all deceit.
But we have to be careful about just taking a big number and presuming that there's a conservation impact on that.
So again, he's sticking purely to birds. Secondly, I asked the obvious question: if that was 55 million songbirds that were being killed by people with guns, do you think he would say we need to be careful? You know, we need to be careful about judging whether there's a conservation impact on that? Of course he wouldn't say that, nor should he. Nobody would say that. It'd be an absolute disgrace if people were killing 55 million songbirds in the UK annually with guns. He would never say that. It's just the most breathtaking deceit. And secondly, he doesn't care if it's your own garden, my own garden. Cat comes in one day, kills a goldfinch. Next day kills a goldcrest, next day a bullfinch, next day a song thrush, next day a blackbird, next day a robin, next day a pied flycatcher, next day a nuthatch, next day a tree creeper. Does he care? He couldn't care less. He could not care less.
These birds in gardens produce large numbers of chicks every year in the full knowledge that most of them won't survive. They're essentially playing the lottery and buying more tickets to make sure they can get one or two to survive to the next year.
again, it's just anthropomorphic rubbish. To make an analogy with people playing the lottery, it's complete and utter rubbish. I mean, again, we know that, of course, it's true that most birds will not survive. The majority will be killed. That's true, or they will die in some way, shape, or form. We know that, but to say it's like playing the lottery, it's absolute nonsense. And as I say, we are going to look at instances of nest predation. It's not a lottery. They never got out of the nest because a cat killed them. Not a wild legitimate predator, but a cat destroyed the entire nest.
And that means they're actually quite able to withstand these high levels of predation.
Again, he just keeps repeating the same lies. They're able to withstand this. They're able to withstand this. They're able to withstand this. First thing, no, they're not. Secondly, it's our private property. We don't want the killing. Okay?
So that number, the 55 million birds lost in the UK, that per se doesn't worry you? You don't think it's an indication of something that needs to be tackled?
Well, I mean, there's a series of simple things that cat owners can do to help.
Okay, so now we find out who he really is. I've told you that the RSPB has a transactional relationship with cat owners. It's all about the money, and he has just demonstrated that. There's a series of simple things that cat owners can do. That's his target audience. That's who he cares about. Everything he says is geared to appeasing and mollifying these people. He doesn't give a damn about people like me. The people who are on the receiving end of it, the birds, the mammals, the reptiles and amphibians, he doesn't give a damn. It's the cat owners that he's interested in.
Reduce that figure. I mean, one of the things that always strikes me is there's a lot of emotions in this discussion on both sides, and I'm sure you've heard some of that since yesterday.
So, this is where, for me, he starts to head off into the stratosphere. When you're talking about duplicity and deceit, it beggars belief. There's a lot of emotions in this on both sides, he says. Okay, who are the two sides, right? There are the people who own the cats, who claim the right, and they do claim this right, to trespass onto my property and the private property of other people, into parks, into nature reserves, where there should be nature, there to kill anything that moves. Okay? I don't care what those people's opinions are. There's a lot of emotions on both sides, are there? When Wayne Couzens kills Sarah Everard, I don't care what Wayne Couzens' opinion is. I don't give a damn. He has removed from himself his right to have an opinion on anything because he murdered somebody. Okay? The cat owners, this is all wanton killing. That's what you need to understand. It is all illegitimate. It is unjustified. It is unjustifiable. There is no legitimate death of wildlife by a cat. Okay? He doesn't tell you that. As I said, he implies all the time that this is analogous to legitimate predation. You can see what I mean. He never states it. It is all done by implication. Okay? I have a lot of emotion. I have a lot of emotion for all the creatures that are killed by the cat. It's just wrong. It's a fundamental moral wrong. The reason there's no law against cat predation, why? Because of people like him. That's the reason.
But I've never met a cat owner that wants their cats to be bringing in birds.
I mean, again, he's telling you now who he really is. I've never met a cat owner yet who wants their cat to be to be bringing in birds. Again, firstly, it's a straight lie. A lot of them gloat in it. They think their cats are clever. The more that they kill, the cleverer the cat. That's the first thing. The second thing, even if it were true what he says, they don't want the cat bringing things in. So what? They are killing things. What we need to be interested in is the facts. The death is the fact. The predation is the fact. If they wanted to stop it, go back to Peter Marra. They can keep their cat on a lead. If they really care, they can keep the cat in. They don't keep a cat at all. I don't keep a cat because I don't want wildlife killed. I've got a dog. My dog is under my control at all times. She doesn't kill things. If my dog went onto my neighbour's property and starts killing things, how long do you think they're going to tolerate that for? And if I said, I really wish she wouldn't do it, does that cut any ice? Of course it doesn't. Because adult behaviour is responsibility for you take responsibility for your own pet. The cat owners don't. They don't. And he legitimises this. You can see that. He is legitimising it.
And there's a whole series of simple things that cat owners can do to help reduce that number, reduce the number of birds brought in by their cats significantly. And that's really simple things like sighting bird feeders away from cover.
So again, you can see it's all geared to the cat owners. People like me, and I know many, many such people, genuine conservationists, people who want wildlife in their garden. We are not mentioned. Put your bird feeder, where cats can't get to it, or some nonsense like this. I've never used a bird feeder in my life. I don't use bird feeders. We've got, I don't know what we've got here, maybe 15 acres, I've never measured it, of ancient woodland, of scrub, of hay meadow, of garden. Okay, I manage the habitat, and the rest takes care of itself. You don't need to go and buy bird food from the RSPB and all this nonsense. You don't need to. How can I keep cats away from there? It's impossible. We've got boundaries everywhere. I can't possibly keep them out. It's just complete rubbish. And of course, everything in the RSPB's playbook is geared to sort of urban and suburban gardens. It's geared to nature reserves and the things that they understand. I don't play by those rules. I don't need to. It's a whole ecosystem, and the cats are annihilating it. This guy he takes the cake. He really does.
Fitting a bell and a well-fitting collar to your cat so that the birds...
Okay, so I'm going to read here. I haven't actually noted this, but I think I must have written it down from the Mammal Society survey, and I quote, "The capture rate of neither birds nor herpetofauna were affected by equipping cats with bells." Okay, 1997. Okay, 2016, he's saying put a bell on your cat. So again, it's the cat owner. It's not the people on the receiving end. It's the cat owner, the cat owner, the cat owner. So they say it doesn't work. Chris Packham, I've got audio of him saying that it doesn't work. Jeff Knott saying do that. Okay, it's all complete rubbish. Second thing, again, nest predation. A little baby blue tit in a nest, and we'll come to this, or a baby swallow in a nest. Here's a bell. Is that little baby bird, does that understand that the bell means a cat is coming? Firstly, of course it doesn't. It means nothing to them. Secondly, even if it did, what can they do? Can they get away? They can't. They're nestlings. They're tiny little helpless birds, and the cat will kill them. You can see the rubbish that this man puts out. This is 3 minutes and 17 seconds, this clip. The deceit is breathtaking.
Can hear them coming. Things like that can just help reduce that number and make it even less of an issue.
So if you have a cat, you shouldn't sort of hold back from feeding birds in your garden. It's a question of choosing the right spot.
Yeah, exactly. It's about sighting feeders sort of high off the ground, away from cats, away from surfaces they could jump from. If you have a particular concern, you can place spiny plants such as holly sort of around the bottom of feeding stations, because cats don't like sitting on holly any more than you or I would.
So again, you can see that his interlocutor, so-called Michelle Hussein, hasn't got a clue. Not a clue. So she plays along with him. So if you've got a cat, you shouldn't not feed birds in your garden. So again, it's all geared to the cat owner. It's not geared to everybody else. And he then goes on to, it's just more of the same. It's the same old rubbish. Put holly around your bird feeders. What? Don't let the cat out in the first place. The cat shouldn't be roaming free to kill. That's what the issue is.
And it's things like that to help deter them. And from a conservation perspective, the really important thing is to understand how significant this is. And only last week there was the State of Nature report launched by a coalition of more than 50 organisations, which looked at all of the drivers of the loss of wildlife in our countryside. And let's not beat about the bush. We are facing a conservation crisis in this country. But cat predation didn't even come close to cracking the top 10.
Okay, so in due course, we're going to look at some footage of Jeff Knott. We're going to lift something off the RSPB website. I would say my analysis of this man is he's never done a proper day's work in his life. He talks about conservation as if he speaks for conservation. Okay, I'm a conservationist. I'll put my track record up against him any day of the week. I've coppiced my own woodland for 25 years. I've made charcoal. I've sold firewood. This table is made of ash that I have cut and milled. Okay, this is what conservation is. He does not speak for people like me. He does not speak for nature. He's a fraud and a liar. Okay. This coalition of 50 conservation organisations that he talks about, what you need to understand with these people, it's like anything else in life, okay? Conservation, it's a career path, right? You climb up the greasy pole and you sup from the gravy train. These people are all supping from the same gravy train, okay? If you're a whistleblower, how does that help your career prospects? It doesn't. You might find yourself in real serious trouble. You'll be shut out of the picture, okay? So the fact that cat predation didn't even come close to cracking the top 10, of course it didn't, because it's a rigged game, okay? I would suggest I've provided you with abundant evidence here. I've actually got a lot more than this, but that's why. So the fact that cat predation is deemed not to be a problem by them, yeah, that's because they're corrupt, okay?
Of things driving the decline, so it's important we keep this in context.
Yes, some valuable perspective. Jeff Knott from the RSPB, thank you.
So he's given a perspective, all right, nobody could argue with that. It's a completely deceitful, misleading one, and she has swallowed it hook, line and sinker. She's just, okay, thanks for some valuable perspective. She hasn't got a clue. You know, this is not journalism. This is what I mean. I talk about this stuff. It's a sham of conservation meets a sham of journalism. It's an absolute farce. It's the emperor's new clothes. You know, I couldn't make it up if I tried. And I go back to the fact that today is the start of COP15, the biodiversity conference in Montreal. I confidently predict that nothing will change in the same way that COP26 goes by, COP27 goes by, and nothing changes. And this is why, because it's all a sham. And there's a little coda to this. We'll have a listen to it now.
I once tried to rescue a half-dead bird from the jaws of my cat whilst on the phone to Jacques Delors' office. It was a memorable phone call.
So, to me, that comment, so that is Michelle Hussein's co-host Nick Robinson. Himself a cat owner, surprise, surprise. So he's just heard what he wants to hear from a representative of the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, so-called, falsely called, I would suggest. Let's ask ourselves some questions that he doesn't ask. Is that bird a house sparrow, 961 killed by 906 cats? Is it a blue-tip, blackbird, starling, song thrush, nuthatch, tree creeper, green woodpecker, greater spotted woodpecker? He couldn't care less. It's just a bird. This is why we're in a biodiversity and nature crisis, because these people do not care. Another question, is that a parent bird that is, you know, has a brood of nestlings in the nest that it is trying to feed, and that cat has just killed that bird? I have found nests of dead nestlings, okay? Now I can't say for sure what happened to the parent birds, but they've clearly been killed somehow, okay? And it is crystal clear that cats will kill parent birds. He doesn't care. He couldn't care less. And Jeff Knott doesn't say to him. If Jeff Knott was who he pretends to be, he would say the sort of things that I'm saying. You know, what do you hear from him? Silence. Okay? From the man who claims to be a protector of birds. This is what it is. This is what it is.